Hey guys, it's David. Real quick before we get into today's story, I just want to remind everybody that these stories are written by AI and that I do not own them or claim to have created them. I use ChatGPT to write these stories so that way I can tell y'all stories without having to worry about copyright infringement. But with that, if you do enjoy today's story, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video so I know which stories y'all like so I can do more of what y'all enjoy. If you have any recommendations or requests, you can comment them down below and I'll try to get to as many as I can. And with that, I hope you enjoy today's story. Shadows in the Rain. Detective Alex Grayson had seen his fair share of dark alleys and crime scenes, but nothing could have prepared him for the night he was called to Waverly Avenue. The night rain poured in torrents, turning the street into slick rivers of gray, as if the city itself was mourning what had happened. Alex stepped out of his car, pulling his coat tighter against the chill, and approached the yellow tape that cordoned off the street. "Detective Grayson," called a young officer, tipping his hat. "The victim's in the alley." Alex nodded, steeling himself. He'd been a detective in this city for nearly 2 decades, but murder cases always brought an uneasy feeling that he could never shake. In the narrow, shadowed alley, illuminated by the harsh glow of the street lamps and police lights, lay the body of a woman in her early 30s. Her name, Alex learned from her ID, was Claire Delaney. She was dressed in an expensive coat, the kind that marked her as someone who had money, someone who didn't belong in a place like this. As he examined the scene, Alex noted the signs of a struggle. Her coat was torn, her hands bruised, her fingernails chipped, as if she'd fought for her life. But what struck him the most was the look on her face, frozen in a mix of terror and sorrow, as though she had known her killer. The forensics team was already on the scene, gathering evidence, snapping photos. Alex crouched down, careful not to disturb anything. "What do we have so far?" he asked the forensic lead, Dr. Laura Kent. "Cause of death appears to be strangulation," Dr. Kent replied. "There's bruising around the neck and signs of blunt force trauma to the back of her head. Likely struggled before she was overpowered." Alex nodded, glancing around the alley. There were no cameras, no witnesses so far. The rain had washed away any footprints, making it even harder to piece together what had happened. "Any idea what she was doing here?" he asked. Dr. Kent shook her head. "We found a few things in her purse, a phone, some cash, and a notebook, but nothing that gives us any clues about why she was here." Alex glanced at the notebook, a small leather-bound journal. He flipped through it, noting a few sketches, some addresses, and a list of names. One name stood out: Daniel Grayson. Alex's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't heard that name in years. Back at the station, Alex sat in his dimly lit office, staring at the name in the notebook. Daniel Grayson, his brother. They hadn't spoken in years, not since Daniel had disappeared one night, leaving behind nothing but rumors and a trail of debts. Alex had tried to find him, tried to bring him back. But it's as if Daniel had vanished off the face of the earth. He picked up the phone, calling the number for Daniel. It rang endlessly until finally a voice picked up. A gruff, unrecognizable voice. "Who is this?" Alex demanded. There was a pause. "Alex, I was wondering when you'd call." "Daniel?" Alex's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm surprised you remember me," Daniel replied, his voice laced with bitterness. "I need you to listen carefully, Alex. What happened to Claire wasn't random. She knew things that she wasn't supposed to know." "What things? Why does she have your name in her notebook?" "She was looking for me," Daniel said quietly. "She was a journalist, digging into people she shouldn't have been digging into. I tried to warn her to stay out of it, but she wouldn't listen." Alex felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you saying you knew she was in danger?" "I tried to protect her," Daniel replied, his voice tense. "But she kept asking questions, kept pushing. I couldn't save her, Alex." I'm sorry. The line went dead, leaving Alex with more questions than answers. He sat in silence, the rain tapping against the window, his mind racing. Daniel had been involved with dangerous people before, but this was different. This was murder. Over the next few days, Alex buried himself in the case, sifting through Claire's notes, trying to piece together what she had been investigating. Her notes pointed to a series of high-profile individuals, businessmen, politicians, even some officers in the police department. It was clear she had uncovered something big, something that had put her life in danger. As he dug deeper, Alex began to see a pattern. Claire had been looking into a series of unsolved crimes, all connected to a man she called the Ghost, a mysterious figure who seemed to have his hands in everything from drug trafficking to political bribes. The more Alex read, the more he realized that this ghost was no myth. He was real, and he was powerful. One evening, as he sat in his office, exhausted and frustrated, he received an anonymous tip. The caller's voice was distorted, but they left him with a single name and address, a location where he might find answers. Despite his reservations, Alex followed the lead, driving through the city to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The place was dark, the windows boarded up, the air thick with a sense of danger. He stepped inside, his flashlight cutting through the shadows. He was barely 5 steps in when he felt a sharp blow to the back of his head. The world spun. He collapsed to the ground, struggling to stay conscious. His vision blurred. He saw a figure standing over him, a man with cold eyes and a cruel smile. "Detective Grayson," the man said, his voice dripping with contempt. "You should have stayed out of this." Alex's world went dark. When he woke, he found himself tied to a chair in a dimly lit room. His head throbbed and his vision was blurred, but he could make out the man standing in front of him, the Ghost. He was a tall, imposing figure with sharp features and a calculated glaze. "You've been looking into things that don't concern you, Detective," the Ghost said, his voice calm and measured. "Claire Delaney was warned. She was given a chance to walk away, but she didn't. And now, here you are, following in her footsteps." Alex glared at him, his mind racing. "She didn't deserve to die, and neither do I." The Ghost chuckled. "I found that everyone deserves exactly what they get, Detective. You, her, your brother. All of you are just pawns in a game you don't understand." Alex clenched his fist, anger boiling within him. "If you think killing me will stop this investigation, you're wrong. People will ask questions. They'll dig even deeper." The Ghost smiled, a cold, cruel smile. "Perhaps, but I've buried people who had far more to lose than you." He turned and walked away, leaving Alex alone in the darkness. As the hours passed, Alex's mind raced, searching for a way out. A way to bring justice not only for Claire, but for everyone who had suffered at the hands of this man. Finally, when all seemed lost, he heard a faint sound, the scrape of a door opening, the shuffle of footsteps. A familiar face appeared in the shadows. Daniel. His brother held a knife, and without a word, he cut through Alex's bindings. "Let's get out of here," Daniel whispered, his voice tense. Together they made their way through the labyrinth of hallways, moving silently, their footsteps echoing in the emptiness. They reached the exit just as dawn was breaking, the sky painted with the first light of day. As they stood outside, breathing in the fresh air, Alex turned to his brother. "Why did you help me?" Daniel looked away, his expression hard. "I owed you, and I owed Claire. She believed in me, even when no one else did." They parted ways after that, each going down their own path. Alex returned to the station, filing his report, determined to keep Claire's investigation alive. He knew that the Ghost was still out there, lurking in the shadows, but he also knew that he would stop at nothing to bring him down. Hey guys, it's David. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you liked today's story. If you did, again, let me know by subscribing to the channel and liking the video. It really helps me out. And with that, I'll see y'all next time. Bye.